Okay, everyone, thank you for joining us and welcome to Creepy Conversations from the Castle. This is your host, Bobby J. Gallo from Gallo Family Ghost Hunters. And tonight we have a real treat. Actually, we have some really cool things to tell everybody. And the first is this is going to be our very first podcast that's actually simulcast on both Facebook as well as YouTube. So I think that's pretty cool. And the second thing is we have some amazing guests. We really do. Um, we have Josh Chairs and Melissa Ferrazzano, and they are from Phantom Detectives. And they have incredible resumes, and I'm going to have them tell you about themselves as soon as I bring them on. But I hope we get some people in here just to let everybody know. As of this podcast, and you know I do this every time we do a show, we are now up to 28,739 subscribers on YouTube. And when you add another 5,000 on Facebook, that's a whole lot of people. So right now, I'm going to bring our guests in from the green room. And the first one is going to be Melissa Ferrazzano. And there's Melissa. Hey,
Hey,
Melissa.
hi, how you doing?
Good. And now here comes Josh Chairs. Hey,
Hello,
Josh.
hello. How's it going, Bobby? I'm looking forward to answering any questions that come in from your end and from your listeners' end.
Awesome. Awesome. And I brought Melissa in first because ladies first. That's just how we roll here. So just going to tell you that now. Okay. So I got my chat up in case people pop in. And okay. So this is, let's get to it. For those, I know you guys and I've read your bios. Josh, I've known actually for a while. We've been connected on Facebook. We've also met in person several times, and great guy, connected with the whole Art Bell thing. And I'm going to talk about that in a second. But I want to find out a little bit about both of you because there's going to be a lot of people that are either going to watch it tonight or are going to end up watching it after it's all done. And if you see me looking back and forth to the camera, I got like this 2-camera thing set up. So just letting you know. So I'm going to start with you, Melissa. I know you studied, you are not only a paranormal investigator, but you studied under Cindy Kaza. And I think that's very impressive. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, thankfully, Cindy offers so many different classes. So, I've studied under her on subjects such as automatic writing, advanced mediumship. My goodness, there were a handful of others that I've taken with her over the years. And she really is a fantastic teacher. She really and truly is. So I've been able to use those skills, not just in my own business, because I do give readings separately. So I have my own psychic medium business. But I take those skills and I apply them to our paranormal team as well. So it's been great. It's been what she has taught me has been very useful in so many ways, for sure.
That's awesome. And how do you apply your skills, if you will, to the paranormal, like as far as investigations go?
So doing automatic writing, I'm able to tune into what I'm picking up on from the spirits. I feel that they are connecting with me on such a deep level that it's interesting because I don't want to say that they are taking over me, but I'm in such they're connecting with me so deeply that I just write. And what's interesting is that as I'm writing what I'm tuning into, I feel that it's coming from someone other than me, and I don't even recognize my own handwriting afterwards.
Hmm.
So then I take what I've tuned into and I see if it is accurate with the history of the location, especially if we are investigating mansions and museums where I don't know the backstory. And that is always my goal. My goal is to always go into these places blindly.
Sure.
Um, because going in there, if I know any information, then it's biased. So it's interesting for me to see if it's accurate, if what I'm picking up on does truly match the history of these locations. So
Right.
um, studying mediumship under her allowed me to take things, as I said, on a deeper level. She would give us exercises to work with. We would pair up with other students. I would pair up with other students. And that way we could apply what she has given us. So that was fun. But to take that onto and into investigations as well, see if I'm connecting with the spirits on a deeper level, the different skills that she has taught me. It's been beneficial to us as a team. So
That's awesome. Automatic writing has been a staple of psychic mediumship since Victorian times. And I'm always fascinated by it. I think that's great, and I really do love seeing some of those classic modalities kept alive. And because some psychic mediums, they all work in different ways. But I do love to see that. I want to jump over to Josh here. Josh, I know a little bit about you, but I want you to tell everybody a little bit about you.
Sure. Obviously, I originally got my start into supernatural by watching Unsolved Mysteries with Robert Stack. Probably one of the first true,
Oh,
real
love that.
paranormal shows. How could you not love Robert Stack?
You're too young for that.
And
I
also,
remember that.
obviously in Search by Leonard Nimoy. When I was a 4 or 5 year old kid in 88, 89, I always enjoyed watching these shows because they were the first really real paranormal shows that came out on television. So I was always captivated. And there was one, obviously, episode of Unsolved Mysteries called The Haunting of the General Wayne Inn in 1988. I remember watching as a 4 year old child, learning about this, obviously, this English coaching inn named after Revolutionary War hero Major General Anthony Wayne. And supposedly during the episode, they talked about how a tenant would be outside, the car would be on by itself. They would also talk
Mm.
about Hessian soldiers being seen throughout the whole building. Obviously, like the patrons would be at the bar sitting, and all of a sudden, like a lot of the women would have like something like literally touch them on their necks. So that really that episode really got me interested in the supernatural. And then in the '90s, of course, I would read every book I could by Hans Holzer. America's First Ghost Hunter was absolutely amazing. The way him and his trans mediums, like hearing about his legendary investigations with his trans mediums Ethel Myers and Sybil Leek. Obviously, those were always fascinating books. And of course, I would read every book on UFOs. Obviously, from Whitley Strieber, his books Communion, Hunger, Wolfen, fantastic guy. Obviously, also hearing Linda Moulton Howe reading her books basically. And I remember watching her in 1993 as a 9 year old kid on a show called The Other Side on NBC. And then obviously when I remember one night on the AM dial, I remember hearing this guy and he said Dreamland with Art Bell and Coast to Coast. And I was immediately mesmerized and amazed by Art's style and delivery. He was pretty much the first real paranormal radio show host to talk about UFOs and near-death experiences and all of that. And then years later, I would end up working with his producers, obviously on their respective radio shows. So that was a really cool thing. And I always enjoyed him talking about time travel with Madman Markham. And then in the early 2000s, I obviously had the opportunity to investigate the General Wayne Inn in 2002 with my late mentor, Michael Lean Mayer. And Miss Mayer, of course, since passed away. But in the basement area, I took 3 consecutive photos during a ghost hunt at that time. And one of them had green and yellow streaks of light in it. And I have no reasonable explanation. And then obviously in 2004, I remember seeing all the ghost hunting shows came on TV when I was in college, from Ghost Hunters, Paranormal State in 2007, Ghost Adventures 2008. I was immediately hooked. I loved how these shows would interview witnesses and clients, use the scientific method in trying to determine, like, create a hypothesis, develop it, and test it, and then see at the end, reveal the evidence to the clients and, what everything that they captured. I always enjoyed watching these shows, the way they could just, put all their, you set up all their equipment and then investigate the home or business to help homeowners find out what's going on. And it was always a really cool experience. And then in 2014, I had the opportunity to form obviously I was watching this episode called A Haunting of Summerwind. And
Mm.
Summerwind, of course, is the most haunted house in Wisconsin. It was founded as West Bay Lake Fishing Lodge in 1914. And then 2 years later, it was converted to a obviously mansion by a guy named Robert Patterson Lamont. He bought it from Mr. Frank, and then obviously after he had it converted, he started having his own paranormal experiences. So I helped, obviously, found rebuilding a haunted house in Wisconsin, and I was doing that project for a while. And then in 2015, I remember calling into one of Art Bell's producer shows, and obviously would end up working with two of the staff members in 2015, 2016.
Wow, that's amazing. That really is. And I know that you talk about Art Bell, and I got to tell you right now, I'm actually a huge fan of Art Bell, and let me tell you exactly how that happened. Back in the '90s, I was a full-time professional touring magician,
Wow.
and it was a great experience. And a lot of the times when I was traveling and I was driving, it was always at night, and I would be going from state to state, doing overnighters, and I would always go through the channels trying to find something to listen to. And because this is before podcasting or anything else like that. The radio is all you had. I would always find Art Bell. He would always pop up somewhere on the dial, and I would listen to him. And I got so into it because I really loved his style. I loved it. This is Art Bell, and he would talk, really low, and he would, be close to the mic, and you felt like he was in the car with you, and it was like this really cozy way. It was spooky, but it was cozy at the same time, and it was very endearing. And then he would talk about these incredible subjects, the subject matter, which I've been investigating since 1990, so I was already doing it for a while. But he'd be talking about cryptozoology and things like that, and UFOs, things that I wasn't even that familiar with. And I just loved him, and I was hooked. I would try to find him anywhere I was, when I was traveling late at night on the road. So that's basically how I got hooked onto Art Bell.
That's awesome. So obviously, like much like any truck driver at night, obviously Art would take phone calls over unscreened phone calls over the air from all his listeners, and
Right.
sometimes you would see a good old boy coming down the road with a broken up cell phone connection that might have had some kind of say, hey, I saw a UFO over Area 51, and everyone remembers in 1997, Art had a phone call from somebody that claimed that they were flying over Area 51 and they saw like UFO, like a UFO, like UFO parts and different things. Obviously, out at the government was taking stuff inside Area 51, and there was like supposedly someone that was like there was a famous Area 51 caller, which you can
Right.
still find out there on YouTube. So obviously, that was one of a fascinating call. So he was really way ahead of the curve in terms of what he did. And obviously something that was never done before. And he gave everyone a voice. And he was also the first radio show host to read ghost stories over the year. Every year in Halloween, he would obviously take calls, obviously, where people would tell their ghost stories, and he would fax them in and read them over the air. That was something never done at that time, too.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But I just loved his style. He was the coolest cat on the planet when I was listening to him. I just loved him. I really did. I miss him. I mean, there's very rarely do you find talents like that. And I know when we were in the green room before the show, you told me that I kind of reminded you of him a little bit, and I'm like, boy, that's a high bar. That's a high bar.
Absolutely. Yes, and your delivery, your style. And one thing is when he came back for the final time, so what happened was in 2013, he obviously had, he left Coast to Coast and he sold it to Premier Networks. And his KNYE radio station, he sold to his neighbor, Karen Jackson. So what happened was Sirius XM was trying to get him to obviously, renew. And obviously he only had a 6-week run on Sirius XM. But the problem is, he wanted Sirius XM wanted his subscribers to pay like $200 a year, and Art's like, I'm not doing that. I'm going to go back to my webmaster Keith Rowland. So obviously Keith obviously came up with this free network called Dark Matter Digital Network, and
Oh,
so
wow.
when obviously Art came back for the final time, his show called Midnight in the Desert. So what he was obviously there was a vote in this forum. Obviously, and they did a vote and said, what would you like Art's show to be called? And obviously, Midnight in the Desert won hands down. It was actually the name of a song that Crystal Gale wrote for him. So he used that, and obviously that became the genesis of his final return ever in 2015. Obviously, he stayed on the air from July 20th, 2015 to around December 8th, 2015. Unfortunately, what happened was he had a stalker near his compound, so he had to obviously leave and give his obviously show to his producer, obviously, and she rolled with him for 2 years, and she did a pretty good job. And obviously, it's a shame because he really left a amazing contribution to so many people. I mean, everybody knows who Art Bell is, and he left an amazing impression on so many people.
Yeah, yeah, and I want now, Melissa. I'm not sure what your relationship is with the whole Art Bell thing. I know you know him through Josh for sure, but did you ever listen to him back in the day?
I haven't. So anything that I've listened to currently was from Joshua.
Okay.
So because of Joshua, I got to really hear and enjoy and truly appreciate the work that he did. So I'm
Gotcha.
sorry that I didn't know of him prior prior to
But
meeting Joshua.
No,
So,
no worries. I was just
yeah,
curious.
and,
yeah,
and I know Melissa's husband Tony, of course, much like you, obviously also loved art too, too, Bobby, and
yeah, yeah. He
obviously,
would
and
listen.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
long time.
great.
yep.
Yeah, I know Melissa's husband's a nice Irish guy like myself.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. With a last name like Ferrazzano, of course. Yeah. Very Irish, right?
I always make that joke when I run into another Italian.
Yeah.
So, but so now let's talk about Phantom Detectives,
Sure, absolutely.
because that's the name of your investigation group.
Yes. So
And now I noticed, Melissa, when I was reading your bio, you talk about cases. What type of cases does Phantom Detectives uh, do? And because Gallo Family Ghost Hunters, my group, we don't do cases. We just try to investigate historical haunted locations predominantly, um, but we don't investigate residential hauntings. What do you guys do?
So we do residential cases,
Hmm.
and to be quite honest, they have been the ones that have been. I don't like to use the word scary, but they've been the
Hmm.
ones that we've had. We've encountered some negative
Hmm.
energies. They seem to be the ones that are the most trying, if you will. We've
Mm.
investigated residential cases where we have left feeling depleted. The whole team, we had felt depleted for about a week's time. And what's interesting is that one case in particular that left us feeling depleted. So we didn't have cold symptoms necessarily, but energetically we were drained. And the homeowner, well, it was actually a gentleman who was renting an apartment, was having such negative experiences there. And a lot of those experiences took place in his bedroom. So he wouldn't sleep in his own bedroom. And he was always feeling physically sick. He had a lot of problems to the point where he wound up leaving that location. But I
Mm.
remember that particular case. Again, we were all very energetically drained. And it was also a hard lesson that evening about protecting ourselves before going into locations, especially when we know that the homeowner, is dealing with a lot of negative, things happening. But we do investigate a lot of historic places. And I found that, especially when it's mansions, it's a lot of times it's the prior owners that are hanging around there. I mean, they're very attached to the place. They've made memories there. Their belongings are there, so it's understandable why they like hanging around there. So I haven't had too many negative experiences investigating, these historic locations. Um, but yeah, we're pretty versatile. Whoever reaches out to us, now I'm also the case manager of the team. So whoever reaches out to us will fill out an intake form on our website, and from there, I take a look at it and discuss it with the team. So we're pretty open. We're pretty versatile as far as like where we investigate. We're pretty, open to whatever, as long as the team agrees that this would be a good place. And we do have another member on our team who will interview the client first, uh,
Mm-hmm.
especially if it is a homeowner, just to really find out what's going on, if it's worth our time. We bring a lot of equipment. I mean, it's pretty thorough, pretty detailed. So there is a process. But yeah, we're pretty versatile as to where we go. We've investigated a lot of interesting places, even covered bridges. I mean, yeah, we've done a lot of different things over the years, so we keep it pretty exciting.
No, that's great. That's great. You keep it different, you keep it varied. You don't just specialize in one thing. And I also noticed that I'm listening to what you're saying. You use different modalities. You're a psychic medium, but you still use equipment to validate maybe what your intuition is telling you. And I think that's great. And I also really tapped into what you said about using protection. And that's spiritual protection, folks. Just to let you know. Okay, let's make that very clear. Okay, um,
Yeah.
uh, but we had the same issue at one point early in our careers, and it's funny because people can really follow us from our very start as a family, right on up till the present day. People watch the kids grow through our videos. But the thing is, I could tell you exactly what episode where things changed, and I think we picked up an attachment because we weren't really protecting ourselves the way we should have. Lesson learned. And that's one thing that when people want to go ghost hunting, and I know like they look up to us, they look up to you guys, they look up to all of us who have experience in this field, and they think, oh, well, if they can do it, then we can do it. And that's true, but they still don't have the benefit of our experience in the field. And sometimes they can get themselves into trouble if they're not doing the right things or approaching it the right way with the right intention, which I always say is absolutely key here. Josh, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to like we obviously as a team, and of course, every team should be doing this. Is when you go into a location, you want to treat the spirits like it's their home. Obviously, like with respect and kindness. Obviously, when you go and investigate, you want to please say please. You want to say thank you for setting off this equipment. Thank you for allowing us to come into your home or your business. So when you go in and you treat the spirits like it's their home, you're going to get a lot of positive results. So not the Zach Baggins, you did it to him, now do it to me. That's
Oh
like
yeah.
that's more for like ratings and money and stuff like that. But the proper approach is with kindness and respect. You're going to get so much more back from the spirit. Sometimes they might show themselves up in an EV electronic voice phenomena that you capture. Sometimes they might show themselves on a thermal camera or
Right.
your security camera as a shadow. But when you show the kindness to them and treat them just like obviously like people like us in life, you're going to, and you treat them like that in death, you're going to be you're going to get a lot of positive results.
It's absolutely, it's so true. And I talk about this in both my books, I believe, but definitely in my first book, um, that, ghosts are people too. It's not that they were people, they're still people because the essence of what makes us us is still there. It's just,
Exactly.
in a ethereal form. But I believe, and I've always believed, that the reason that my family has gotten so much evidence over the years was basically due to the kids. And it was their pure intention. They weren't doing this to be a star, which is what I believe in a, excuse me, that's why I keep taking a drink here because I'm losing my voice. I believe, and I stand behind this, that 90% of the groups out there are only doing this to become famous. They want to be the next Zach Baggins. They want to be the next Grant Wilson. They want to be the next, Heather Taddy. This is what they want. They want to be famous. And this might sound a little bit crass, but I said it in my book, so I'm going to throw it out there here on the show. The sad fact is the paranormal is the only field where somebody has the potential of becoming famous without any talent whatsoever. You don't have to sing. You don't have to dance. You don't have to play an instrument. You don't even have to tell a funny joke. You don't have to be able to do a good card trick. You don't have to be able to do anything except film yourself with infrared light holding an EVP recorder. So they think, so for those people who are wishing that fame, they look at this as a viable way for them to do it. They just don't understand that that's not the intention of this field, or at least in my opinion, it shouldn't be the intention of this field. We always approached it as the reason we're doing this is to find evidence of the afterlife.
Right.
That's why we do it. I want
Exactly.
to be sure that there's something, beyond this mortal existence. And that's why we do it, because I think if we could prove that, I think it would benefit humanity in innumerable ways. So that's why we do it. And I think when my kids would go out on an investigation, their intentions were so pure that the spirits would grant us the gift of communication. And I think a lot of these groups, these spirits are not stupid. And it's just like, you ever, you see them trying to communicate to a spirit on an investigation. Okay, can you please come over to this ball and push it? They could hear you just fine. In fact, they
Right.
probably even know what you're thinking.
Mhm.
So they know what your intentions are. They know why you're there. So there's, you can cut through all of the theatrics, I believe, when you're on an investigation. But what do you think about that, Melissa? Everything I just said.
I agree. I agree about approaching everything. I'm always very humble and always very polite. And I come into investigations with the intentions of, I tell the spirits, I'm here for you. Whatever you want to say, I'm here to listen. Whatever you don't want to say is okay as well. So, as you said, I treat them like they are people. I talk to them like they are living people, because it doesn't matter to me whether they're here or there. I still treat them, like I would anybody else, with respect, and just leaving the door open to them. So I'm right there with you. I do feel that you may get more responses coming in there. Very, like I said, humble, open, leaving it up to them, especially when I'm going into these historic places and I
Right.
know that this was once their home, and I feel it still is. I still treat it like it's their home. I still feel that I'm a guest in their home, and I'm very respectful, and I don't touch things or anything. I mean, just like you wouldn't in someone else's home. So I feel that they truly like that, and as you said, they could see through who is coming into their space and being demanding and wanting them to perform for you versus, coming in there with an open mind. Letting them talk to me. Let them have the floor. I feel that you do get more responses, you do get more evidence. So I completely agree with what you're saying. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I could see just by the way you're talking that you're kind of like me and us, my whole family. And Josh, I'm going to assume that you fall into this category as
Yes.
well. A lot of
Uh-huh.
people ask me, after I've been doing this since 1990, and I've spoken to so many of these spirits, and I've photographed them, and I've recorded them, and I've filmed them. I mean, people go, now, let me ask you a question. Do you actually believe in ghosts? And I laugh, and I said, look, I passed the point of belief a long time ago, because there's a lot of different types of investigators. There's not just one. See, I come from the position where I already know they're there. I mean, I might not know a specific area is haunted until I investigate it, but I know they exist. And Melissa, I believe that you probably fall in that category. At this point, they exist.
Yes.
Josh, what about you?
Oh, absolutely. And actually, the law of energy states that basically energy cannot be created, but cannot be created nor destroyed, but moved from one form to another. So obviously, Mark Anthony, he's on our team. He's a world-renowned psychic lawyer, psychic explorer. He likes to call, like, obviously the afterlife in his book, the afterlife frequency is like when you throw a stone in the obviously the water. It's like a ripple effect. That ripple effect is still echoing today. Obviously, you can still see the ripples of the past
I love
in
that.
and he calls that the electromagnetic soul, where obviously we still have echoes or ripples. So obviously these spirits are all over. They're around us, obviously, every day. Obviously, then they come in different forms, from demonic hauntings to
Hmm.
poltergeists to intelligent residual hauntings. So they can show themselves in different ways. We just have to keep an open mind to it and be alert in our areas. And sometimes, basically, you
Right.
just never know when they're gonna pop up.
Well, let me expound upon something you said about the ripples, because this is what I tell people in my lecture, that, let's just say you take one of those triangles like we all had in the high school band, or somebody used to play the triangle that was like always the person who couldn't play any other instrument got the triangle. Um, but let's just say you hit that triangle and it goes ding. When does that ding? When does that actually stop?
It never stops.
It
It's
never
always
stops. On a quantum level, that might keep going on and on and on. And I tell people that's where we get the theory of residual haunt.
Mhm.
Because when something so dramatic or tragic happens in a certain area and it keeps replaying, it's just like that triangle. It just got hit a lot harder.
like look at Gettysburg. Of course, my good friend Mark
Oh,
Nesbitt runs.
absolutely.
Like, there's a place, obviously, where so many Mark Nesbitt's collected so much information of people seeing, like, hearing cannon fire out on the battlefield, from his Ghost of Gettysburg tours to basically obviously hearing stories of people at Gettysburg College where they would be leaving the putting grades in the computer, and then all of a sudden leaving, and they would end up being moved down to the basement area where they would see like a Civil War morgue, and they frantically push the button to get up to the top, and they go to security the next day, and they say, "Oh, we don't see nothing." So that was a great example of a residual haunting. It's a place memory. Like, Gettysburg is a great example of, a lot of tragedy happened there. So there's a lot of that echoing of the past.
Right. Our latest episode, the hauntings of the Canals Homestead, we just did recently,
Awesome.
and one of the most prevalent apparitions that is cited there is a wounded. It was once a Revolutionary War hospital, among other things. But more than one person has seen a man with a bandaged, bloody head going into this house, and then they go to see who it is, and he's not there. And that's been seen by I believe multiple people. So yeah, I don't believe that's an intelligent haunt. I think that's reason. I think there are several kinds of haunts. I
Yep.
really do. I
Yep.
mean, my research has led me to believe that I don't think there's one intelligent ghost just doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Nope.
But although we do know those exist,
Yes.
when they're acting on command and communicating through a certain piece of equipment, let's just say a REM pod, which I don't even own, we know that's an intelligent haunt.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
you know what I'm saying? What do you think, Melissa, on that? I see you shaking your head in agreement.
I do. I do agree that there are different kinds of haunts. And what's interesting, as far as when we were talking about residual hauntings, um, I do wonder if, say, a person lived in a location for a long period of time, for many, many, many years, and they did a certain thing at a certain time every day or every evening. Like, say, they brewed coffee every morning at 6 a.m., or they would go up the stairs to bed at 10 o'clock every night. I have heard situations about somebody hearing footsteps at 10 o'clock every night, yeah, in their home. And so I feel that sometimes it may not always have to be a tragedy that happens at a location. Again, maybe it's
Right.
just something that this person repeatedly did at a certain time. And it's what's interesting as far as that's concerned is I've had, when I'm using the smell of coffee at 6 a.m., I'm using that as an example. That's something that I have experienced in my own home. And
Mm.
it makes me wonder because the prior owners have passed away, they're older, and I have been woken up at 6 a.m. To the smell of coffee brewing, and it is
Wow.
extremely strong. And I'm up looking for the source of this coffee. Who is brewing this coffee? No one in the home, no one in my home is doing it. I was even looking outside. I'm like, well, why would I smell my neighbor's coffee? It was just odd. So I do believe there are different types of hauntings. As we know, intelligent hauntings, they may answer your questions, whether it's through EVP sessions or, as you said, REM pods. You're getting a response to your question in some way. So it's all very interesting. It really is. So yeah, we've had our share of experiences with especially intelligent responses, intelligent haunts,
Right.
at some of these locations. And one was on, it's called the Lightship Over Falls in Lewis, Delaware. And that in particular, it made the local papers. We were doing an EVP session. Now it was me, Joshua, and our other team member, Rick. And Joshua was asking a question to the spirits, and it wasn't something that any of us heard. But when we replayed that, we heard very clearly a woman saying, "Hello, help me." There was no mistaking it. It was considered a Class A EVP. I want to say that was probably one of our best captures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and my goodness, my mind was blown for about a week. It was just truly amazing. So to really experience this for yourself, there's something to be said for that. So yeah, that's one of the many examples of an intelligent haunting that we've captured with our equipment that still blows my mind to this day.
That's awesome. This is the closest thing I have to a REM pod. They don't make these anymore. Gary Golka made this one.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this
That's awesome.
this is a static pod.
Cool. So it's kind of like a predecessor to a REM pod, similar.
You see the lights right there?
Yep. Yep.
And judging, they turn different colors judging on how the spirit is manifesting or dancing around the static pod. But we've got some great evidence with this thing. But it doesn't make any noise though. So
it's kind of like the predecessor to the REM pod.
I really think it was. You know what? I'm going to tell you a little story about this too. Early on in our career, because when we started doing this, there was about 5 people doing it on YouTube. Now there's thousands, but there was about 5 people doing it on YouTube when we started about 2011, and we had one fan. And I hate to use the terminology fan because, I don't consider us celebrities at all. But for lack of a better word, I'm going to say she was a fan. And one day she goes, I'd like to send you something to use on your investigations and see how you use it. So we ended up getting a box in the mail, and that was in it a Zoom H2 recorder, a tri-field natural EMF detector, which you can't get anymore. They're now worth like almost anywhere from $500 to $800 if you wanted to sell one. Because
really, and you know what's funny? We actually own Ryan Buell's old Trifeld, the very first EMF meter that Taddy and Katrina.
Don't drop it.
yes, Katrina, Taddy's first.
But I just want to tell you this really quick. Here's the kicker on that. Do you know what the return address label on the box was?
No.
It was Warner Brothers Studios.
Really?
Wow.
Honest to God.
Wow.
Honest to God.
So amazing.
And they were scouting us. They thought there might have been something there. So they sent us all this paranormal equipment to use on our episodes. Cool. And believe it or not, the reason that I think things didn't happen is we got derailed by an attachment. And we had to stop investigating for a while. It was bad. And it was because we weren't taking the proper precautions. And I think I even know the episode where it happened. But anyway, I don't even write about that in my books because it's kind of like,
wow.
Yeah.
So basically, you guys stopped for a while, pretty
We
much.
did.
After that, you got all that equipment. Like something happened, and it calls you guys. Like, is there like a big obviously something attached itself to you guys, where you guys had to kind of take some time off in order to recalculate, refocus,
and get that thing gone, which took a while, and 3 different people, a priest, an exorcist, and a shaman.
Wow.
But it's gone.
Wow.
Thank gosh.
It took a while.
You guys were okay. That's what counts.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Protection, spiritual protection. I tell people this
Yes.
all the time, and I talk about it in my books. And even though I did this with my kids when they were young, if I could turn back time, I might have done a few things differently. I still don't think there's anything wrong with it as long as you take the proper precautions, because the result was I have two kids that are fearless now. And to have two strong women come out of these experiences, I think is good. But you still have to be careful.
Yes.
And and besides, look what kids do anyway. Talk about dangerous things. Contact sports,
Mhm.
camping in the woods with snakes, spiders, and bears, and ATVs, and going up in them. I mean, kids do a lot of dangerous things. It's just ghost hunting is a different kind of dangerous.
Danger.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes. Yes. I almost compare it to putting on your seatbelt when you get in and go into a car, because it's I don't get into my car fearful, but I still
Yes.
protect myself in case of anything. And that's how I approach investigations. I don't go into investigations fearful, but you want to protect yourself
Right.
just in case of anything. So, as I was saying earlier, we learned that hard lesson as well. It may not have been as severe as what your team had, your family had, gone through, but yeah. But it was mind blowing that we all felt this way, and we felt it for a week. So yes, that really stands out in my mind. And sometimes you learn by falling on your
Exactly.
face, and
And
you know
that's
what
a
you need to
great way to
do.
put it. I love that, actually. You learn by falling on your face. That's perfect, because that's exactly, I think, how I would describe our experience. It was a hard lesson, and then you learn that, not everything's fun and games, because the bottom line is this. I still maintain when I say there's more to be afraid of the living than the dead. I mean, let's face it, but we still don't know what these entities are, and we don't know what they're posing
Mhm.
as. I mean, is the spirit really the spirit of this gentleman who lived in this old house 200 years ago, or is it a spirit passing through that's just, hey, if they wanted, I want somebody to talk to. I've been wandering this plane of existence. I haven't moved on. So let me just tell them whatever they want to hear so that I could actually have some company. I mean, we don't know. We don't
Exactly,
know.
because obviously, like since they appear in different forms, obviously, and it's hard to figure out, like what forms. Like, for example, just like UFOs, for example, there's a ton of different, like, alien species out there. From Whitley Strieber saying there's grays and there's different color. Obviously there's like triangular saucers, cigar shaped saucers. I mean, obviously there's so many different kinds of UFOs, so many different kinds of spirits. I mean, obviously sometimes they appear as elementals. So obviously, since it's so hard to keep track of, it's almost like an endless a plane of existence, because spirits are coming in and out of different portals and different places, so it's so hard to
Hmm.
track it all.
Well, I think spirits are
Mhm.
everywhere anyway, but I think they're more prevalent. And I think their abilities to manifest in certain locations is what gives certain locations the reputations of being haunted. But I
Right.
think when all is said and done, you know, if you want to use a religious analogy rather, heaven and hell, I don't believe are up and down. I think everything is all around us. It's just a different vibration.
Right.
Yes.
And Melissa's nodding again.
Yes. Yep. I agree. I feel that these worlds are
Yeah.
so closely connected to us. And I do. I know everybody may believe something different, but I do believe that our loved ones who have crossed over, or anybody, has the ability to cross over into our plane, into our realm, because especially, and I'm speaking from experience from
Yeah.
losing loved ones. I feel that
Right.
they will
like
show us
like
signs. They will show us signs in many different ways, whether it's a song that randomly comes on, you're driving, and that was one of their favorite songs. I mean, I do feel that they show us signs, and I just keep an open mind, and uh, say, okay, oh my goodness, that must have come from my dad, because he loved this
Right.
particular band, and now
like
yeah, I'm seeing that band is I never hear this band on the radio, but lately they've been playing them so much lately. Or just other things. So I'm always paying attention to the signs around us that our loved ones
Like,
are trying to show us.
look at
I
Melissa
do.
Galko, obviously.
Yeah.
Gary Galko's daughter, obviously. He created the Mel meter, the 8704R meter, obviously, because he started getting signs. And what happened was she was obviously coming home from homecoming one night and she hit a tree head on, obviously, toxicology reports, no foul play. And then
Right.
basically she started showing signs after her passing of appearing in the house, basically, as you could hear her voice. And remember the Ghost Adventures episode that Zach and Nick and Aaron did back in 2012. Very touching episode. For example, like Melissa gave that great example of something appearing on the radio. Gary would be driving, all of a sudden one of Melissa's favorite songs would pop on the radio, Melissa Galka's, and there it was. So obviously, that's why he created the Mel meter as a way to. It does not only obviously EMF and millicost, but also it does temperature. And you can also, and there's also ones that do REM pod, which is like a Swiss Army knife. But that's a great example of our loved ones visiting us. Melissa is still there in spirit, and Gary's able to document that through his investigations with her.
And that's why I trust. And when I tell people, a lot of people scoff at this equipment. And then I tell them Gary Galka's story. And I say, you have to understand that not only is Gary an electronics genius, but he created this with the purest of intentions.
Exactly.
And these are not toys. His one piece of equipment that is literally my favorite piece of equipment is the eye hair crosshair thermal detector.
Nice.
What I really like about it, well, when we were first trained to be paranormal investigators, it was by a Dr. Harry Stafford. He's passed, but he was a early paranormal pioneer in St. Augustine, Florida.
Uh-huh.
That's the only place he ever investigated because there's just so much to investigate there. And he trained us. And his big thing was using thermal recognition to detect paranormal activity because of the history of cold spots. Throughout. I mean, the history of cold spots, and sometimes even heat, but mostly cold, goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years to be associated with the presence of spirits, which now we think it's the spirit using the ambient energy in the room to manifest. That's why these cold spots appear. But it could be a portal. I don't know. But I truly believe it's they're using the energy in the room. But he was big. He goes, all you need is an EMF detector and a thermal gun. And he taught us how to do that. But this IR crosshair thermal is great because it's more than a temperature gun. It's got like this little radar grid on it.
Nice.
And it'll actually track the cold or hot anomaly in the room.
That's so cool.
So it's kind of like the old Ghost Radar app, but it's a real serious piece of equipment that uses thermal fluctuations instead.
Nice.
And it's legit. And we just got it. It's amazing. We our latest again, the Canals Homestead. I was using it, and my daughter was in a rocking chair, and there was a tiny little child's rocking chair next to her, and we were trying to contact the spirit of the child. And all of a sudden, during the communication, right on the little rocking chair, we got this huge cold anomaly, and it was the only time it happened throughout the entire investigation.
Wow, that's so cool.
Oh,
it appeared, it was there,
that's interesting.
and then when we acknowledged it, it vanished, and it wasn't there anymore. And you always know that's legit, because if that was a natural cold spot in the room, it would have kept going.
Right.
But it was there, and then it was gone.
Right.
Wow.
Right in her little rocking chair.
That's so cool.
That's
awesome. And sometimes the little light up cat balls, the children love those too. The children's spirits love the little light up. It's a simple little piece you can get from Amazon for like $3 or $4, but the light up cat balls are great.
Look, I have no problems with using whatever, because you never know what's going to work. I mean, my very first investigation, I had an old key on a piece of string that I was using as a pendulum. So, because I couldn't find anything else. So,
wow. That's so cool.
Yeah, you never know. It's true. You never know what the spirits are going to want to manipulate. Like you said, if you're going into a child's room, there might be a piece of equipment that they're really drawn to. We have teddy bears with and a cat, they look like stuffed animals and they have a REM pod attached to them. So we seem to get pretty decent responses with those when we know that, a child spirit might be present. So you truly never know. You never know what any spirit is going to want to manipulate. To me, it's like a bunch of toys. What is
Right.
it that they want
Right.
to play with?
Exactly.
So yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's definitely interesting for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. And I also found that when I go into locations, and I'm going to, use the example that I've given before about the apartment, the gentleman that was staying in who had the negative experiences, and I went in there and right away felt like there was a very there was a woman in there present, and she was angry, and she did not want us in there. I mean, she was really
Mm.
making me feel uneasy. And during the investigation, we had I believe it was in our
Yep.
spirit box,
Yep.
Joshua, that was going. And as we know, it's AM FM sweeps, and people, as we know, are really not allowed to curse on the radio. But as I was tuning into this woman, a woman's voice came through and
Oh,
was
wow.
cursing at us. She was pretty nasty. Yep. So it's interesting how what I'm tuning into can be validated. I mean, maybe not in every single investigation, but there are times that it will through our equipment. So it's interesting how that comes
Absolutely.
together.
Well, I'll never forget
Yeah.
an investigation my wife and I did, just the two of us. We were going through the woods, and the spirit was leading us to an old Indian fort.
Wow.
And um, her rods, as her rods went, my EMF detector was tracking the direction her rods were
Wow.
going in all the way to the fort.
That's
I mean,
amazing. So,
both of them were
Oh
in
wow.
perfect synchronicity.
wow.
And when something like
That's
that
Interesting.
happens, it's you really got to pause and say, well, it can't be. First of all, where was the EMF coming from in the middle of the woods? But
Right.
second
There's
of
no
all,
electrical
Right.
source, obviously. There's no like obviously there's no
Right.
insulation in the house. There's no microwave setting that up.
no.
That's just straight EMF.
And I know some people will talk about geolocation energy, EMF coming from the earth, but that's rare and it's only a spike. It's never
Right.
something that's, you know, that you can maintain for any length of time.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, we've had some things happen that we can't explain. There was when I first joined the team, we investigated a place called the Sanderson Museum, which is in
Mm,
Chadsford, Pennsylvania, and there was four of us on the team at the time, and we were on the second floor of this museum, and we came downstairs, me and another investigator, and all of our belongings, our hoodies, boxes that we had our equipment in, were on the steps. It was like
oh,
something was
wow.
barricading us. We still today we cannot explain this. I mean, we have no reason to believe that somebody broke in there because our belongings, nothing was stolen. We had our valuables there. Again, everyone was on the second floor, and we cannot
Wow.
explain this to this day. Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for that logical explanation, but I mean, for a spirit to really move our belongings and try to barricade us. I mean, me and, like I said, my other team member, we were coming down the steps and we just looked at each other. How on
Mm,
earth did this happen? I mean, we cannot explain it to this day. Now, during an EVP session, we did capture a woman's voice telling us to be
mm,
afraid. We do believe that it was a woman. Now, the museum is
Hannah,
called the Sanderson Museum. And yeah, the gentleman who owned
Christian.
that home, Mr. Sanderson, his mother lived there before. From what I understand, she was
mm.
not a nice lady. So we believe it may have been her voice that was telling us to be afraid. And we captured something else, Joshua. Remember, there was another EVP about something having to do with that. We asked her a question. Was it about did you move our
Yep.
belongings? And we got a yes. Do you remember
Yeah,
exactly?
so this was
Something
after we
along the
went
lines of
off
that.
during World's Largest Ghost Hunt. Obviously, we were there with Maria Schmidt that night. Really nice person too, Bobby, and too Melissa. And I remember, obviously, we asked the question. Obviously, like, is there obviously, is there anybody here that would like to communicate with us? Are you Christian Sanderson's, obviously, are you Christian Sanderson's mother? And we got a yes. And then she said the word "be afraid." So obviously, this was kind of obviously she died in the museum in 1946, obviously from tuberculosis. So obviously, this was
Hmm.
her trying to say, "Hey, I'm still around here." And I remember we set all kinds of equipment near the area where she died, and stuff started going off like crazy, like REM pods and different, obviously we had the Obvious Five was starting to go off, like the word Hannah popped up on the
Oh,
Obvious
wow.
Five. So, and when you can use the EMF fields, and Melissa was also picking up on it when she first entered, so when you can pair the Oculus 5 with Melissa's readings, you got strong correlation of some kind of spirit.
Wow.
Yes. Yep. So that definitely stands out as one of our most memorable investigations. I would still like to know who moved our
Yeah.
belongings onto the steps.
That's great.
So,
Wow. That's awesome.
yeah.
Um, Josh, tell me
Yeah.
about Dark Matter News.
Sure. So obviously in May of 2021. So what happened was, obviously, as you know, I worked for Arch staff in 2015, 2016, and also 2018 and 20. So basically, a guy named Leo Ashcraft. He obviously was a guy that was part of the Mutual News. He used to live down in Dallas, Texas. In 2000, April 2015, Art Bell hand chose obviously Leo Ashcraft to basically head his news division, and he would become the Dark Matter Digital Network news anchor. So Leo, of course, was Art's affiliate director from July 20th of 2015 to October 3rd, and he left over creative differences with Art's webmaster Keith Rowland. But during
Hmm.
this time, Art said, "I love your voice. I would like you to do a newscast on the bottom of every hour on my show Midnight in the Desert." So obviously Leo would obviously have a 5 minute paranormal newscast, and he would talk about, like, it would sound just like NBC News,
Right.
obviously, and people loved it. It was like a really cool newscast. So Leo reached out to us before Melissa joined in May of 2021, and Leo's like, "Look, I'm selling Dark Matter News. I don't want nothing to do with it anymore, but I want to keep it in good hands and keep it in the Art Bell family." So I said, "You know what, make me an offer." So I went ahead and obviously, we went ahead and we made an offer for the Dark Matter news service. So we bought the Dark Matter News name, we bought the Dark Matter News logo, we bought the Dark Matter News website, and we also bought the Dark Matter, all the audio files that Leo Ashcraft recorded for Art Bell. So we have all those. So we purchased the Dark Matter News name, and we continue the legacy of Dark Matter News through Fan Detectives. It's now our news division. So we keep it going. It's a tribute to Art's memory and
Wonderful.
everything that he did. So obviously, we have no plans to, if Leo ever wants to come back and run Dark Matter News, he'll always be able to run it, but we'll still own it.
Gotcha.
So
Well, hey, that's the way the world works.
exactly.
I think it's great, though. That's great. Now, is it up and running like the website?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yep, we have the website fully going. Obviously, we can post paranormal news stories. Anybody has any paranormal conventions, we can put on the website. If obviously anybody has any UFO stories or Bigfoot stories they want on the website, we can post it up there. So we have no problem putting up any paranormal news stories on the website for our fans and our followers and everyone in the paranormal. Like, this Dark Matter News is for everyone who loves the paranormal. This is for everybody. I want to open this up to everyone in the field who wants to have a piece of Dark Matter News. We want to share Dark Matter News with everybody.
That's wonderful. And I mean, I'm seeing that we're not getting like a whole bunch of live viewers, but this is going to end up being seen by thousands of people. Normally, like, and by the end of the next 2 weeks, we'll probably have several thousand views on this. So what
Awesome.
I'm going to do is make sure that we put the link for Dark Matter News underneath this
Awesome.
broadcast,
Very
so
cool.
that people that are watching this, I'm telling everybody that's watching this right now, go down below, click on Dark Matter News, and bookmark it. Okay, that's what we want you guys to do. Okay, you're listening to me, right? You guys. Okay, so we got to make sure that they do that. So, what else do you guys want to plug here? Because I mean, I don't know how much time you guys have, but we
Sure.
are pushing an
So
hour here.
I would love to plug in all of our websites. So
Go
obviously,
for
we
it.
have the main one, which is phantomdetectives.org. Obviously, that's our team website. You can view, you can find us. You can talk to us on Discord or email us and have a case. Or we also have paranormal investigator training courses on Udemy, which we have now have 40 subscribers. That's growing. you can just click Paranormal Investigator Training. Obviously, as I mentioned, darkmatternews.com, our news division. We also have Holly False. Holly, of course, worked with Taddy. Holly and Taddy have a long history together in PRS. We have one of our former core PRS members working in our research department. Holly worked under Elfie Music. That was her mentor, and she was Ryan Buell's right-hand person. She's with us now. She has a history with Heather and Katrina. We also have her website is hollyfaust.com, HOLLYFAUST.com. We also have Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer, who would be great for your show. I think you'll love him. His website
Absolutely.
is afterlifefrequency.com. And Melissa, could you plug in your website?
Sure. So if anyone ever wants to reach out to me for readings, I do have my website. It's psychicmediumautumn.com. And you can also find me on Facebook under Psychic Medium Autumn Melissa. You can always reach out to me that way if I could ever help you. On my website has, the services listed. So yeah, yep, that's where you can find me. If you're looking for a mediumship reading, I do tarot, home clearings, so
And also,
it's
I'd
all
like to plug
there.
in one more website who's not here. Our team member, Rick
Go ahead.
Warner, obviously he comes from the UFO world. His website is ERC, like ERC, the number 2, explore.com. He's the ERC2explore.com. If you got a UFO case, you want to investigate it, Rick's your man.
So when you sent me your press kit, all those links, these are the ones that you just mentioned.
Yep.
Okay, we'll make sure that we get those beneath this broadcast so that
Awesome.
people will have access to all those links. I got to tell you a quick Heather Taddy story. You guys have connections with her. I've always, my all-time favorite paranormal show amongst the mainstream shows was Paranormal State.
Really? That's so
I
cool.
always thought it was the most honest of them all. Ryan always had a code that he didn't want to fake anything. I know he's had, his problems. I mean, we all have, let's face it. But I'm still a huge fan, unapologetically, and I love the show. So I've always loved Heather and Katrina. So recently, this past summer, I was a guest at the Fieldsboro Manor in it's Fieldsboro, New Jersey, at the White Hill Mansion in Fieldsboro, New Jersey.
Awesome.
And it was very funny because somebody said to me they knew I knew Heather was going to be there and Katrina, but I always liked Heather because I thought she was fun. And once somebody said to me, "Oh, Bob, Heather's coming out of the trailer. She's walking over to the main building where she had her desk." And I said, "Oh, okay. Let me see if I approach her. Let me see. She's not going to take a picture with me, but let me give it a shot, right?" So I started to approach her. She looked at me. She goes, "I know who you are." I said, "You do?" She goes, Yeah, I know who you are. You're Bobby Gallo." I said, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh my God," I couldn't believe she knew who I was. And she was like, "Oh yeah, let's take a picture." And I was like, it was just such a great moment.
And you'll love Holly. Hopefully, Holly will be there too. Obviously, Elfie obviously keeps a very low profile, but whenever you meet Holly, you'll absolutely love her. She's incredible too. Obviously, Holly False is she's a real renowned expert on occult symbols and spiritual beliefs. Great guest for your show. I'll get you in touch with her.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah. Hey, look it. You know what? This is going to go on. I have no plans on stopping this. So, and I do like. We had this conversation in the green room. I like having on people that I don't see on a lot of other podcasts. Because if you go on Facebook, this one goes on this podcast, this one goes on this person's podcast, and it's kind of like everybody's on the same podcast. I want to get people haven't seen yet. And I do want to mention that you have a YouTube channel right here on YouTube.
Yes. Yep.
So folks, They have a YouTube channel right here. Phantom Detectives, you need to subscribe. We'll have that link too. But subscribe to their channel. Okay, we have almost 30. What did I say before? 27,500 something. I want to see at least 27,000 on their channel. Okay, so.
Thank you.
That would be awesome.
You never know. You never know. The potential is definitely there. But yes, Phantom Detectives, awesome. This was a great conversation.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank
There
you
was
so
like
much
no
for having
lag.
us.
This was like everybody was just, you know, so you guys know your stuff, man. It's a real honor to have you guys on the show, you know. So, Josh, you're always giving me compliments, but I want to give you a compliment saying
Oh,
that
thank you.
you're an awesome guy, and it was really, really great to have you on. Melissa, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for accepting my friend request on Facebook. Hopefully, we can stay in touch. And you guys aren't far from us, so maybe one day we'll do a
Collaboration.
collab.
Absolutely. I would love it. And
That would be great.
I can't wait. I
Would
think
love
you're going
that.
to love Mark Anthony, the psychic lawyer. He's going to be an awesome guest for your show. He's written 3 books. He's everyone loves him on Coast to Coast. He's been on there multiple times with George, and the callers love him. You know.
That's great. That's great. I really appreciate that. Well, you're both wonderful people. You're both very impressive people. You've impressed me, and I'm sure you're going to impress everybody that is subscribed to this channel. So, do you have any parting words?
Obviously, nothing I can think of, but just obviously everyone just be safe out there. Obviously, just always use protection on investigations. Always stay humble, be
Spiritual
kind.
protection.
Yes. Yes. And obviously, and just pray because we got a new. I'm not trying to talk politics, but I'll say we got a new administration coming in. Things will start getting better, for the better.
Good for you.
Yes.
Good for you.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Stay positive.
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree.
Stay positive. I totally agree with that. We're all on the same page there too. Okay. Yeah, I noticed that we clicked on a lot of things tonight. I think that's awesome.
We did.
We did. That's really great.
Yeah.
Okay, folks. Well, let me see. Wait a minute. Wait. We got to have some outro music here. Let me see. Music. Okay. Podcast. But anyway, folks, this was Creepy Conversations from the Castle with Melissa Ferrazzano and my good friend, Mr. Chairs. Okay, folks, we'll see you later.
Bye.